Hey everyone, this is Oscar from Underdog, and today let's talk about a musical skill, a musical concept that you need to know if you're trying to make electronic music. It is the thing that makes emotionally impactful music emotionally impactful. It is the main tool that's going to help you compose music that tells a very clear story. It's going to have a profound emotional impact on your audience. And the tool, the concept that I'm talking about is the chord progression. And hang on before you say, a chord progression, that's just an instrument playing a couple of chords, right? What's the big deal with that? Well, if you are a beginning musician, I want to tell you that it is a bit more subtle than that. It's a little bit more abstract than that. And unless you're 100% sure that you know why and how to make a chord progression and how to implement it in your song, then let's take the time now to understand it, because this is some of the best spent time that you will ever have to understand some of the foundational building blocks of music. Now, I actually recorded a large part of this a year ago, so rather than trying to re-record that, I thought I would give the word to my previous self. Take it away, past Oscar. By the way, nice jacket. Okay, so chord progressions. What is it and why should you care about it? As you may remember from your brief adventures into music theory, a chord is nothing more or less than just a few notes being played at the same time. Let's imagine a piano keyboard. So if you play a few notes at the same time, you are playing a chord. Chords have a relatively high amount of emotional value inside of them. Some chords are more happy, some chords are more sad, some chords are triumphant, etc. And particularly when we move from one chord to another chord in a song, something happens and we get an emotion, a quality of feeling happens at that transition moment. So what a lot of songs do in order to deliver a particular emotional message is they structure up all of their musical content around a certain chord progression. That is a short series of chords that have been chosen for their feelings that then get repeated over and over again in the song, and all the instruments that are playing in the song, they take into account that chord progression when they play. So it's important to remember that a chord progression is not any particular instrument's job. There's no such thing really as a chord progression for the piano or for the guitar. There's only a chord progression which is an abstract structure which sits behind the music, and it informs the notes that all the other instruments are playing at any given moment. So that means that any particular chord progression already has an emotion in it, and then any production that uses that chord progression is going to also have that emotion. And this is why it's often interesting to get it clear in your mind what your chord progression is going to be before you even go into production. Let me show you this with an example. Imagine we've got ourselves this chord progression. It sounds like this. We'll play it again. Now that was being played by sine waves, the simplest, least designed sound that exists, right? And yet you could feel some kind of emotion listening to that, right? There's something about those chords that gives you a particular emotion. And now we can do a production around these chords to harness that emotional energy and then use the sound design that we want to denote a particular genre. Like imagine if we constructed an old school house song around this. It would sound a little something like this. Did you feel how that somehow had the similar emotion to that sine chord progression? Because it's the magical glue underlying the whole thing. Let me do the same for a drum and bass sound design palette. That also had the same chord progression underlying it, just faster and with a drum and bass beat, but the synthesizers, anything tonal, respected that chord progression. A second chord progression over here might sound like this. This is a slightly different emotional quality than the previous one, okay? Now let's listen to it in house music. And the same again in drum and bass. Again, the same chord progression keeps the same emotion, however, the overall timbre changes. Now let's do a more special chord progression, one that's even weirder. Like you can stick to very safe chords, but you can also stick to kind of special chords. And so let's try one with very special chords like this. This is a pretty atypical non-standard chord progression. In house music. You feel that descending energy, that same vibe from the first one in this production, and now for the drum and bass one. So I tried to keep the production concepts the exact same for all three of these examples, only changing the chord progression that underlies it. And you may or may not be surprised to know that the majority of popular songs that you're familiar with actually use the same chords over and over and over again. It's really just the instrumentation played over the top of it that changes, that gives a song its character. Check out this video by The Axis of Awesome that is a very clear example of how a few simple and effective chords have been used throughout decades to create popular music that you are very familiar with. So hopefully by now it's clear that if you are designing music, it could be wise to sit down before you start making music to actually figure out what you're going to do harmonically in your song. Cha 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 cha. Thank you very much, Past Oscar. That's the theory. Now, if you've made it this far, well done, by the way. The next question you're going to have is, well, how do I make a good chord progression? Because maybe I don't really know music theory. Well, I want to offer you a whole bunch of strategies that revolve around the concept of shopping for emotions. To go deeper into this subject, I'm going to publish a video later this week that's going to show a few strategies for you to create impactful chord progressions and how to compose music over those, even if you don't play an instrument. Subscribe to the channel here so you don't miss that video. Like the video as well to boost the algorithm. Leave me a comment to show me some love, also for the algorithm. And if you want to learn in a more complete way how to make electronic music, find my courses on courses.underdog.brussels. And that's for those of you who dig my teaching style and would like to follow a more beginning to end class with me. Come show us on the Discord channel what you're doing with all of this. And until next time, stay producing, be good to one another, take care.